¿Cómo está todo el mundo? ¿Qué van a hacer? Me llamo Kevin, el Chinito Lindo. What's up, guys? My name's Kevin, aka Chinito Lindo. Today, I'm bringing you a video on how to find your voice in Spanish. So, ¿cómo encontrar tu voz? These 3 tips to find your voice. So, one is to figure out what you want to do with the language. If your goal is just to be able to go to a Spanish-speaking place or a Spanish-speaking country and be able to do order your favorite foods, go to your favorite restaurants, go to the store and shop very efficiently, then what you have to do, one, for food, I recommend watching videos on YouTube on how to make so-and-so in Spanish. So for me, one of my favorite dishes is arroz con pollo. So I would watch videos on cómo se hace arroz con pollo, how to make rice and chicken, right? It's a very coveted dish in the Cuban community, and it was one of my favorite dishes growing up. So I would watch videos on that, and by watching videos on cooking in that language, you learn how to say certain ingredients in Spanish and in the way that culture says that ingredient. So for example, if you're going to be going to Mexico, if you're going to be asking for a dish and you have a peanut allergy, you gotta say, oh, yo no quiero cacahuates, I don't want peanuts, okay? But if you're going to like a Cuban place, and if you say cacahuates, then they're gonna look at you funny. For me, when I was first learning Spanish, my favorite place to go to was the Cuban bakeries, a la panaderia. Entonces, for me, when you learn how to say your favorite foods, then you can, when you're being asked or when you go to order, you can say them confidently. So for me, I learned how to say pasalitos y croquetas real quick. So when the cashier would ask me, oh, ¿qué quiero hoy? Pasalitos o croquetas. My tip to be able to work in a language is, one, you need to get a notebook. Get a notebook and write down the most common things that you need to know. So for me, I needed to learn the parts of the body real quickly. Bueno, como se dice, tu cabeza, tu cuello, hombros, brazo, antebrazo, piernas, pompi, all that good stuff. And it was necessary for me to take my time and really like go through them, practice my pronunciation, so that when I'm working, like there's no hesitation. It's like, oh, ¿qué estamos haciendo hoy? Okay, o ¿qué estamos haciendo hoy? And for me, I'd be real quick. Okay, estamos haciendo piernas. Okay, we're gonna be working on your legs. Okay, or with the anatomy, I also had to explain a lot of things, a lot of processes and pathophysiology to these patients, obviously with the supervision of my supervisor, but my technical Spanish increased real quick. So for my tip with that is, if you're actually gonna have to not just say like quick things to your patients or clients, and you actually had to like talk with them for a minute about, say you're working as a bank teller, you need to talk about finances. It's not just enough to like write down a list of the most common things in banking and how to say them in Spanish. No. My recommendation for you is to actually take a course in that language. So a lot of colleges offer Spanish for medical professions, and yes, in that course you would go over like the basic anatomy physiology terms, but you would also have to learn like just basic processes, so like the circulatory system and like the pathway of blood throughout the body and how to say it in Spanish. You know, and the teacher would ask you straight up, okay, descríbame con todos los pasitos del sistema circulatorio. Entonces, you know, please tell me the steps of this the circulatory system. So, and for me, it was fun because I was able to learn my, basically relearn my favorite subjects in another language, and so it combined two things: my love for Spanish and my love for my courses and my profession eventually. Like learning Spanish just to have casual talk, to go order food or just to shop, and go ahead and watch videos. But if you're gonna actually be working and you really need your vocabulary and as well as your understanding in that language, your deductive reasoning that you need to do in that language, then go ahead and actually take a course. Basic courses in that language. And for Spanish, a lot of universities are offering, and not just universities, like online programs, they offer like basic courses. So in healthcare, they'll offer medical Spanish, and I'm pretty sure for finance and business, they'll offer Spanish for business people. Go ahead and take that step so that your technical Spanish will increase dramatically. So that is tip number one. Figure out what is your objective. ¿Cuál es tu objetivo? So, all right. Tip number two is finding out who your people are. You know, who is your audience? So, for example, in Miami, a lot of the people here are from Cuba and other Caribbean places, such as Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela. So that area of Latin America, and for the most part, they have a Caribbean accent. So for me, my accent is very Caribbean. Like, I don't pronounce my S's. You know, ¿cómo tú estás? ¿Qué vas a hacer? ¿Cómo? ¿Qué estamos haciendo hoy? You know, I say that instead of ¿cómo está? ¿Qué estamos haciendo hoy? Like, you know, how are you? What are we doing today? You know, for me to pronounce my S's, it takes a lot of brain power for me to consistently keep that in mind. So yeah, figure out who your people are, so that you can cater your learning to those people, and obviously you also want to be able to communicate with as much people as you can, be able to understand all the accents and variations of Spanish. But when you're first starting off, it's very easy to just tackle one community at a time. You know, Spanish is a very diverse language with many variations, but being able to isolate the audience that you're going to be speaking to primarily, it's gonna have a lot more things click. Tip number three in finding your voice is to figure out the slang that you really like. So this goes with tip number two, which was figuring out your audience and the variation of Spanish you're going to be speaking the most. So within that, you should look into all the slang that you really like, on all the idioms that really stick with you, so that you can replicate those and they'll be driven in memory. So how do you say, oh, that's so cool? Que bacano, que brutal. That's what I usually say, and those sayings are more like Puerto Rican. So yeah, figure out the slang that you really like. Those are gonna stick with you, and that'll help you speak more like a native person. So, all right, guys. So today we talked about finding your voice. So real recap of what we talked about today. One is to figure out what your objective is. Figuring out if you're just going to be going to restaurants and ordering food, or are you going to be working in a language. Two, figure out your people. who is your audience. That way you can focus in on learning that variation of Spanish, so you're being more efficient with your time. 3 is figuring out the slang that you really like. By incorporating a couple slang words when you're talking, it's gonna make you sound more like a native person. So I hope you all learned something today. Stay tuned for more content. And yeah, que tengan un buen día.